just kind of got bored, and I had Alicourt open in front of me, and some little wires in the back of my brain just connected, and I typed in, let's see what happens when you type in Nehemiah Wahl. And lo and behold, there was the golden egg. There was this traffic ticket from 2023. Morgan County state trooper had written him a speeding ticket. That speeding ticket showed that he presented the trooper with a Tennessee driver's license, not an Alabama driver's license. It showed the address as the address I'd found for this Nehemiah Wahl in Nexus, the online database that we sometimes use. But it showed that the car was registered to the Athens, Alabama address that John Wahl uses.
All righty. Welcome in Alabama Politics This Week. You don't know it, but we're off to a fantastic start. This is Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Man, I'm good. After last night's crazy weather, surviving that, thank God, I'm in a good mood.
Yeah, right. The sun came up. We had one go right over the house here, and we'll talk about that later. I know when we talk about a right-wing nut deal.
That's just so mind-blowing to me that you actually have a friend who took video of it and everything. I didn't have that experience, but I have seen posts of people. I have a friend who she and her husband live in 5 Points here in Huntsville. Mm-hmm. They had a tree come through their house, fell on their house and go through it. And another friend who lives in Madison was showing what had happened in her neighborhood. And, some people really took some hits, man. So
yeah, it's it's tough. I live with a person who I'm related to by marriage, who is deathly afraid of the storms. And by the way, I'm not insulting my wife when I say that. It's a Tony Kornheiser show reference.
Yep.
But she's deathly afraid. Lived through one when she was in college, hit her dorm. And so not long after we moved in here, we installed the one of those storm shelters in the garage that we have. And so that relieves a lot of anxiety for us and the little one. Go out and hop in that. And we were in it last night. We had it was a weird situation over here, man. We lost power, which is not uncommon these days for some reason or other, even though all of our utilities are underground. I understand that they do come from a substation somewhere nearby that may not be necessarily underground. So I get that. But when we first moved in, we never lost power during storms and stuff. And now we lose it all the time and for hours on end. Last night it was out for a solid 3.5, 4 hours. Was out the other night too, for 4 hours, in the middle of the night. So yeah, it was a pretty scary situation. Did not have cell service for whatever reason. So we had I don't know what happened to the cell tower, but I'm assuming it took some damage or something because we were not alone. We were on T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon in the neighborhood. We had a nice neighborhood thread on Facebook of people talking about how their phones just completely stopped working. And it wasn't just, landlines are out, internet's out, everything was down. And so, we had the weather radio, but really, that's hit or miss on getting the information, that you need and to see what's going on. So we're relying basically on the weather radio and the sirens going off, there for a little bit, and which is not the ideal, situation, but we're in the storm shelter. So we were safe, here at our house, but at the same time, you would like to have a little more information, especially in this day and age. And so we'll get into that a little more, when we talk about our right-wing nut. But first, just oddly, as this was starting yesterday, I was actually speaking to the CEO and chairwoman of the Porch Creek, Stephanie Bryan, about coming on. She's going to come on sometime in the month of June and spend some time with us and talk about the tribe. And she she heard Arthur's interview. And man, Arthur said the same thing. I talked to him yesterday, and he said the same thing. I've gotten a lot of feedback from that interview, from people all around government and stuff, and talked about what they thought about it. They loved his ideas about changing things up and taking a different approach. And I think we're going to make some real headway on that as well. And so I look forward to having Stephanie on. I think they also now see the value of, obviously they see the value of the podcast because they sponsor the thing, as they are great sponsors and we love them. She's now wants to come on and do a long interview and talk. And that's what I told them when I went down for the visit. The more people you guys expose to just the tribe itself and to y'all, people are going to feel the same way. It's because it's authentic. It's not a show. It's not they're not putting on airs, as they say, or anything else. It's not a facade. These are, genuine people. And so she's going to come on and do that. And we appreciate what they do. And listen, y'all go check them out, at the 3 locations they have in this state. The 2 resorts that they have in Atmore and Wetumpka are fantastic. If you're going to the beach, I'm telling you, book a spot. If you head down to the Gulf Coast, I should say, if you're going down there, book a spot at Atmore. All right. It's an hour or so away from the beach. You break up that trip a little bit. You stay in a nice place. You go down, book a spot, or on the way back, get you an extra night in somewhere, go with the wife, get you and the wife go to the spa, send the kids down to the bowling alley and arcade. You can eat nice. You can have a good time. I'm telling you, man, it's a fantastic place, and they do a great job of it. Look them up online. It's Wind Creek Entertainment. Wind Creek Entertainment. Look them up, and you will not be disappointed with what you do there.
Yeah, if you're doing what I did the first time that I went, I was down on the coast. I can't remember which city it was. It may have been Orange Beach, or it was one of those. And,
right.
I stopped off in Wetumpka, spent a couple of nights there. Great way to break up the trip. And, and it was an easy, jump from Wetumpka to Montgomery to Huntsville, back up this way. So,
yeah. I'm telling you, you can't, I've done it. You cannot beat it. And the accommodations are fantastic. Their rooms are all really nice. They've got a fantastic pool out there for the kids and stuff to swim in. And, it's just honestly, the one in Atmore is just beautiful. That pool area and stuff out there is just gorgeous. And so look, or listen, if you're not doing that, go anyway. Look up what they've got scheduled entertainment wise. Pick out a nice show to go to. They always have great shows and things going on, especially during the summertime when they can get out in the amphitheater outside at the Atmore location. They have some really great guests come by and perform. Yeah, Wetumpka as well. You're right. Wetumpka as well. All right. I gotta say, I'm disappointed, Debbie.
Are you really? You're disappointed.
I am very disappointed. I'm going to be completely and utterly honest here.
Okay.
I have not been this disappointed in somebody in a while. And that is in Will Ainsworth. I mean, it's not a disappointment in he owed me something or he owed somebody. The disappointment, it's almost like a sports disappointment, if that makes sense. It's when you're disappointed in your favorite team that does something and doesn't carry through, or something happens or they do something goofy or whatever. And Will Ainsworth is running from this governor's race with Tommy Tuberville. And I felt like, and I've done this a while, I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on state politics and stuff. I'm not always right. I'm certainly not saying that. And I also am sometimes way too optimistic and tend to want to see the good in some people, even after all these years. But I thought he could win. I thought he could win this race. I thought it would be tough. I thought that as soon as, and I'll tell you why, my reasoning behind it. I feel like as soon as Tommy Tuberville gets in this race and somebody with some viability challenges him, the juxtaposition of the two people and the knowledge that Tommy Tuberville simply does not have and is unwilling to learn. Okay. He's unwilling. He has proven he is unwilling to learn the job that he is applying for. Okay. And he's not going to do it as governor. He hadn't done it as senator. He's not going to learn this stuff. Okay. He's not going to do it. And so and especially on the campaign trail, and he's not going to campaign hard. He's not going to work hard for it. He's going to fall back on name ID and the Trump endorsement, assuming that was going to come, all that. He was going to fall back on that stuff. And I felt like within a matter of days, I don't think that Ainsworth could have erased the deficit that he faced going in, but I think he could have probably halved it. Just simply by entering the race, I think he could have halved it, because you then have this choice of a person who you may be familiar with, but also a person that is as conservative or whatever, as Republican as Tuberville is. You certainly can't knock Will Ainsworth for his, conservative, whatever, however the conservative far right wing people want to knock him or whatever. You certainly can't really knock him for that. You're not going to call him a liberal. It's not Doug Jones hopping in the race, you had this choice, and you had somebody who has taken the job seriously. And say whatever you want about Will Ainsworth, okay? And trust me, I have some problems with things that he's done, things that he said, but he has taken the job of lieutenant governor seriously. Okay. He has done things from the lieutenant governor's position that nobody else has done, really. The stuff that he's been able to do for the military, the workforce thing that he put together, I thought was one of the best things that has been done in this state in a long, long, long time, where we identified a number of different problems. And from that legislation originated from that group, that working group of people that he did that truly will end up helping Alabamians in the long run. And so I felt like that you have that person there that could have done this, and I feel like he's probably the only one right now that can challenge Tuberville.
It sounds to me like you believe in him more than he believes in himself, because my question would be, why did he drop out? And I think the answer is, which you've alluded to, the answer is he either did not feel that he could beat Tuberville, or he did not want to try for some reason, which, may be personal or political. I don't know. But it seems to me that, he was poised to certainly be competitive. I agree with you on that. So the fact that he has not done it, I think speaks volumes about something that's going on behind the scenes. I suspect he has gotten the word from the Republican powers that be, which may even go all the way up to Trump, I don't know, along with Tuberville himself, that he just needs to clear out. Now, what I also think is interesting, though, Josh, is, and maybe because you keep up with him and you even talk to Ainsworth, so maybe you know something about this. I'm surprised that he not only declined to run for governor, for the Republican nomination for governor, but it doesn't appear as though he's even going to try for the Senate seat.
No.
I mean, am I missing something there?
No, it's no. And I'll tell you, it's honestly one of the things that makes me like Will is that he is a very family oriented guy. And he said from the very outset of this thing because there were some people some heavy hitters that were pushing him to try to go for the U.S. Senate. They would love to have him in that seat because they feel like after 6 years of Tuberville, you could get a sane individual back in there, and he and Katie Britt could kind of work together, and it really be beneficial for the state. So he didn't want to do that because he has kids who are going into high school. And he did not want, he is, I don't know if you follow him or see any of his posts or anything like that on social media. Almost all of them are stuff with him and his kids, going to, they play baseball and football, and, the daughter is in cheerleading competitions all the time, and he is forever at those things. I mean, he used to have a long running thing of him posting pictures of him driving at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning so he could get back to do the stuff with the kids and things. And I think that's a very noble thing. I try to do that myself, and, obviously I don't have the demands that he does. And so it's a little easier. But he did not want to do that. He did not want to have the rigors of going back and forth to DC all the time and missing, his kids growing up. And
Okay.
and I felt like that was genuine. Yeah. I do, and he said that pretty early on to me that that he did not really. He would listen to them and what they had to say and talk about it, but that he didn't feel like that was going to be a fit for him to do that, and so it was either going to be the governor's race or he was just going to not do anything. But this is what I think has happened now. I think, all right, first of all, it's his decision. Nobody made the decision for him. It's his decision. And he made it because he didn't think he could beat Tuberville. He felt like Tuberville's name ID was so strong and that Tuberville had such an advantage with the ultra right conservatives that he couldn't overcome that. I disagreed with him. I told him so. I told him so a couple of different times that I felt like that what Tuberville had an advantage right now could be made up for by the fact that Tuberville also has a built-in negative. And there are large groups of Republican voters out there who would not vote for him, and it did not matter if he was if it was him versus AOC, they wouldn't vote for him. That because they are disgusted by what he has done and how he's handled himself. And I'm not talking about liberals now. I'm talking about Republicans are disgusted by the way he's handled this job so flippantly. And they have every right to be, because I think that's fair criticism. He has not taken it seriously, has never taken it seriously. And I think that is a blow to them. Yeah. And the stuff with the veterans, I think also hurts him as well.
Yep.
And I think that there's just that group of negative out there on Tuberville. And so, but what I think that Ainsworth has done here is probably ended his political career with this. I think
you think he sees it that way also.
I probably not. He probably thinks he could jump back in 4 or 6 years or 8 years and do something differently. And certainly he'll have the money to do it, and to get back in there. And I'm not saying he's killed his political career overall. I'm saying he's killed his hierarchy, I guess, where he can reach in his political career. I don't think he can reach the governor's office any longer. I'll tell you the reason why is I think that there were a lot of people counting on him to do this. And I think, and I don't think they'll tell him to his face, but I've heard him over the last day, because this started going around yesterday, and but I'm sure it's because he started making phone calls to people. And I talked to some of those people that were his biggest supporters and the people that were counting on him. And, they were not happy. They were very, very unhappy. And I think it'll be hard for him to convince them to get back into his camp later. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'll tell you something else I've said all along too. If there is one viable candidate in this race, Tommy Tuberville will not be Alabama's governor. And I think that that's true. I don't necessarily think, I don't think a Democrat can beat him. I don't think they can in a general election. I just don't think the climate is right for that at this point. I think Doug Jones could make it very close and very interesting and could really, really help Democrats down the ballot a lot, in this thing. But I think if there's another viable Republican who hops onto that ticket, and has a little bit of money to spend, I think Tommy Tuberville will be in trouble almost immediately, and it'll turn into a race.
I'm going to add this to the mix. I think that Tuberville, you may be right that no Democrat can beat Tuberville, but I believe that Tuberville is the most beatable Republican that we'll 100%. Probably ever find.
100%.
So yeah. I'm betting on, not literally, but what I'm betting on, emotionally.
Right. I got you.
Is that the right Democratic candidate is going to emerge with the right amount of resources and the right strategy and messaging to beat him. And that's what I'm counting on. That's what I'm hoping for. And we'll see if that happens or not.
Yeah.
But if there ever was a chance, I think this is really important. If there ever was an opportunity for a Democrat to be elected governor at this point in time, it will be if Tuberville indeed does jump in the race, which it appears as though he is.
Yeah, I think that Ainsworth getting out pretty much assures that Tuberville's getting in. Unless his wife actually learns that she's going to have to live in Montgomery. But I think they've kept that from her. I'll say this. Tommy Tuberville is the best thing that could happen to state Democrats, and probably the best thing that's happened to state Democrats since Roy Moore. He is the most polarizing. He is the one that has infuriated more people than anybody else. He is going to absolutely inspire voters to get out to the polls and to vote against him. All right.
Yep.
And that it could be, if played correctly and done right and done smartly. And there are some people who are working on it right now. I can tell you that there are some people who are working on it, and there's some money behind it. Okay. And for a change. And there are some smart people behind it. There's one gentleman who we both know well, who is working hard to identify a number of different races, that were Democrats and far right-wing Republicans can be challenged by more moderate and business-friendly Republicans. It could fundamentally change the state for a long time going forward, in terms of getting certain things passed that could help a majority of Alabamians for a long time coming. And so I am hopeful in that, and maybe from some bad, some good will come.
So now here's a question that I think is hanging out there as it relates to this whole thing. We've got a Democratic Party in our state that has been, we can use any number of adjectives to describe it, but unfortunately, I would say one of the adjectives it would not be functional or effective, unfortunately. And I think that's just, no disrespect to anybody, but I just think that's the reality. We've seen a lot of finger pointing. We've seen a lot of bickering back and forth. We've seen threats of lawsuits. We've seen apologies. We've seen a lot of stuff. What I have not seen from the state Democratic Party is a strategic movement towards getting Democrats elected in the state. I have not seen that. Now I've gotten a whole ton of fundraising emails.
Right.
But that's not enough. Just simply asking people for money isn't the solution. You got to give people a reason to believe that giving money is going to make a difference. And you got to have a strategy. You got to do more than just, say, well, Tuberville is this or somebody else is that. No, we need more than that. So my question is the state Democratic Party now finally going to look at this situation, see it for the opportunity that it is, and really jump on it?
I don't know. We have some guests we got to get to from Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah.
I'll say this in closing it out. In talking to Randy Kelly not too long ago, even bringing up Doug Jones at the top of the ticket, there was an openness to things that I had not heard previously. And a calmness and not quite the same sort of level of, hostility and things like that gave me a little bit of hope that maybe that we could get on the same page. And I'll tell you one other thing is there are a number of different groups who have formed over the course of the past few years out there who are working hard, around the Democratic Party. And I'm hopeful that maybe some of those folks can make some headway as well. And that, I'll tell you this, our friend Anthony Daniels has proven that you can do this thing independently of the Alabama Democratic Party. If you identify good candidates, get them a good message, put together a solid campaign and do the work. And I think that as long as he's involved, you're going to have a chance to flip a couple of seats. And I think that he has taught a lot of people of the way to do this thing. And hopefully we can get everybody on board, and with Tuberville at the top, we can do this thing. So, all right, let's slide out. We'll come back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and you look around. It's like we're holding like a Teams meeting for the office. This is literally the most people we've ever had on. And so it was when all three of y'all popped up. It was like, whoa, But we are happy because this is what the Southern Poverty Law Center does: is they don't just give you one great guest; they give you three. So Lauren, we're going to start. We got Lauren Blanding, Kalonji Gilchrist, and Dasan Ahanu on with us. And Lauren is the manager at the Civil Rights Memorial. I guess y'all have an event. I know you had a reception last week honoring some artists, and now you have an event this week. I know it's a block party that's taking place. Can you tell me kind of what's going on and what we're doing, and then we'll kind of get into the artist aspect of this and talk to Dasan a little bit and to Kalonji about finding folks and getting the art out there.
Sure. So thank you, Josh and David, for having us on this morning. And what's been going on, Southern Poverty Law Center in partnership with 21 Dreams Art and Culture, we've had our artist residency. We had an opening reception this past Saturday. And we're going to end everything for the residency program with a big festival block party here again at the Civil Rights Memorial Center, where we'll be showcasing art in all its different forms in relation to activism, social and racial justice issues. As everyone knows and kind of sees day to day, there's still a lot going on. So we just want to showcase art in different forms, whether poetry, music, dance, and just let everyone have fun, but also get that educational component of activism and what we need to do to continue to make a change and fight for what's right.
Sure. I know that involves Kalonji, who is the executive director of 21 Dreams Arts and Culture, working with him. And Kalonji, I guess, would it be accurate to say that that you're one of the almost like a football recruiter? Out here, you're going out and finding the artists and recruiting them up and bringing them in.
And visionary, visionary too. I'm visionary and curator, so it comes from a higher sense, and then the recruitment kind of comes into play.
Oh, gotcha. Well, so I guess just explain kind of a little bit about what your involvement is with the Civil Rights Memorial and what you have done with this program that we got coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, my involvement with the SPLC has been in several different projects. We've completed some mural work that aligns with their mission. We've done other efforts in the community, and this one in particular, we did the block party 2 years ago, where I helped recruit and kind of visualize what that looks like. And then coming into this year, we combined that with the artist residency. So I identified two artists, one being Dasan Ahanu, as one of the artists to come down and take place in this 10-day residency, and to really kind of to understand get a better grasp of Montgomery's role in civil rights and social justice movement, and really kind of look at how we move things forward, and just the transformational power of the arts, especially art that's created in these sacred places like Montgomery and the South. So that residency, as well as the community artists that will be at the block party on Saturday, all have that same DNA. They all have that like vision and movement. And so for me, it was just identifying the two artists that'll take part in the residency, who also takes part in the community as well. And then for the block party, it was reaching out to our local artists. Now, I say local, Montgomery and Birmingham, within driving distance, to have them part of the movement as well.
Okay. All right. If you want me to, I'll introduce Dasan real quick, David, and you can ask, you can hop in, because Dasan is the 5-star recruit that Kalonji pulled in. Everybody was after him. They were able to haul him in, and I guess they got a nice NIL deal for Dasan. And so, but I got a brief bio on you, and it is honestly, it's very, very intriguing, because it says you do creative arts but your academic work focuses on critical writing, creative writing, hip hop, and popular culture. Now, I don't know anything about critical writing, of course, but you're also, it also said you are a self-described introvert, which is very curious to me, because I would also say that I am an introvert, and we both have chosen very public professions. Yes, yeah. And which people, I don't know about you, but sometimes people think of me as just a complete jackass because I am an introvert. But they expect me to be one way because of this public profession that I've chosen. And when I'm not, and I don't, I don't dance for them like a clown, I guess, that they think I'm just a certain way. And so I don't know if you run into the same thing, but I understand you are one of the top artists working in this field today.
Yes. And that is one of those curious things when someone who prefers, and it's totally fine being by themselves, chooses to be amongst the people. And it really is purpose driven.
Yes.
It is a love for people, is a love to want to try to have some impact and make some connections and center some good conversations. But it is also one of those things where once it's done, you retreat to regroup and recover because it drains you.
Yeah, well, I think ironically, Josh, you and me, I think we share that trait that sort of we tend to be introverted, but yet we do public work, and it's a strange dichotomy. I want to know. So I saw in your bio, Dasan, that you also work with you either with hip hop or in hip hop, or you're a rapper. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so a little bit of everything. I've been a recording artist for a long time, both when I've, as a young MC, as well as working with a lot of hip hop artists, particularly in North Carolina, where I'm from. But I am also a hip hop scholar, where I started to see the value of using hip hop and popular culture in the classroom as a way to center conversations. And my background is writing, so I started as a English and creative writer professor. And so just trying to reach students and figure out how to get them thinking, because if you can think, you can write. And so hip hop was a vehicle for that. I'm also someone who's taught courses on the history of hip hop. I've taught courses in terms of rap composition and understanding hip hop's place in popular culture. I've taught at 3 or 4 universities. I had the pleasure of being able to help create some curriculum that kind of uses hip hop as a way to be able to kind of spark some thoughts, particularly socially, because hip hop has always been social commentary. And so it gives us a real reflection. Chuck D called it the ghetto CNN. So I think in terms of some of the kinds of conversations we need to have, it's a good way to get to them.
So it was natural for you to connect with an organization like the Southern Poverty Law Center. I have a question for Kalonji, but before I go to Kalonji, Dasan, I need to ask you, so you said you're from North Carolina. Does that mean that you are friends with Fonte Coleman, or Fonte Coleman from Little Brother?
Little Brother, yes. Yes. We came up on the scene, on the hip hop scene together. I've known Fonte for a long time. Another English major, another writer and lyricist, someone that I really appreciate and respect. But yes, the hip hop roots are deep, and Fonte is one of our finest artists, MCs, and lyricists coming out of North Carolina.
Yeah. So Kalonji, let me ask you about this whole idea of fusing art and social justice. First of all, why do you think it works? And then question B, how do you measure the impact?
I always look at, I look at my personal experience. I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up on hip hop. And at that time, unlike today, we had a better mix of the type of music that was out. I learned a lot of history. I understood movements that was happening not only in Montgomery, but in New York, LA, even, from the cultural side of things, as well as just understanding, hearing those names, listening to Public Enemy, listen to X-Clan, listen to all of these artists that were like pivotal in getting me at a young age curious, and making me aware and being inspired to be more knowledgeable about what's going on and what's happening. So from that experience, I know that experience and the history. So then I love art and history. So looking at the history of movements and how, the easy example is the settlement to Montgomery pads and how artists came down and it was, Stars for Freedom rally, and they were very present for movements. What I'm thinking of, Neil Simone. She made the charge that
sure.
an artist, a duty is to reflect the time. So I understand that, and I take that charge, and I experienced that firsthand, and it really helped shape who I am and how I look at things and how I move around in the world today.
Lauren, you are over this whole project, if I understand it correctly. What makes incorporating, and I know this is the art that you're featuring is more than just hip hop, or at least I'm assuming it's more than just hip hop influenced art. But I want to just make this question specifically about the hip hop because that's something I'm intrigued with, and I think really continues to speak to young people in this country. What makes connecting, partnering with artists that use hip hop and rap appealing to an old school, old line civil rights organization like the Southern Poverty Law Center?
I think the connection of hip hop, art, and just the various forms of art and activism is appealing because it's something new. So at the not new, but it's something different and a way to incorporate outside of just the teaching that we do at the Civil Rights Memorial Center through either the videos or just the conversations that we have outside your typical kind of classroom style setting of having that conversation and teaching the history. I think this component helps because it's one, relatable to a lot of people, whether those that I'm a millennial, they grew up in a certain era, a certain time, a certain community or state. It makes it relatable, but it also gives you the freedom to express how you can connect in such a manner. So it's different in a sense, but it also gets the message out, which helps with the impact and the outcome that we want to have overall. So whether from older adults to the youth, young adults, and even the children, something like this that we'll be doing at the block party, letting people be free is just such a heavy time right now. So being free, being able to dance, being able to connect and come together as a community to still have the same goal and the same outcome. It's just a different way of doing things in a way that I can appreciate myself.
Yeah, I would say, it's this idea of art. And so, as Kalonji said, it's not necessarily new. And, for someone like me, which I don't know if you've looked at the panel, I'm a tad different. And so, I mean, seriously, but this is something that draws a person maybe with a background familiar to me into this. It is when you have these pieces, whatever type of art we're talking about, it's something that can draw a variety of different people in and expose them to an experience that is unlike their own, and really, I think in a lot of ways open their eyes to things that are going on that they never considered before. And I mean, honestly, I just going back, I'm sure everybody heard the controversy of the Kendrick Lamar, halftime show and all that sort of stuff. But I'll tell you what it also did is it exposed a whole lot of people to Kendrick Lamar and Kendrick Lamar's music and the messaging that was there, and people came away with an experience, I think, that, if they were open to it even a little bit, that they had never had before, and learned some things. And I think this is a sort of a similar thing. And I mean, or maybe I'm I'm wrong, and y'all can tell me that I'm wrong. I mean, am I right about that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
very much so.
Okay.
It is just that this is about bringing folks together. Art, that's what art does. Every art scene in every city, in every town, is a gathering spot. It is a welcoming for everyone, especially those who are searching for answers or searching to make sense of things. Art is there and available, and so that's always at the heart of what we as artists want to do, which is to be able to help provide for folks and be able to kind of draw them in, to kind of push them to think differently. Yeah. So the hope is that everyone leaves a little bit better than they came.
Okay. Well, look, I got one right. But hey, Lauren, if they want to, if people want to come, how do they need to come to the block party? What do they need to do? Are there tickets? Is it free? Tell people how to get there.
So the block party will be held outside of the Civil Rights Memorial Center. So we'll have the block of Washington Avenue just blocked off. So you literally just have to pull up to 400 Washington Avenue. It's free and open to the public. We do have a registration form that's available on our website. So if you go to southernpovertylawcenter.com, you can find that registration link there. But if you don't register, we still want you to come. Bring your family, your friends, children, bring everyone out. This is going to be a great community event. We thank everyone that's been involved for all of their efforts, and we look forward to Saturday having fun. I'm not the artist. I'm not creative. So, Josh, I agree with you. You got it right. I think I got it right. We're just gonna we're gonna enjoy, and we're gonna learn something new that day. We will have food trucks available, so we hope to see you there.
What time is it Saturday?
Thank you. It will be held from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m.
All righty. Well, hey, listen, it's always nice to have a panel that stops by and tells me that I'm right. So we'll have y'all back on. We're going to book y'all again for next week. And we'll just pop in and I'll ask questions and you say, you're so right. It's all really, cause I really enjoy that. No, listen, hey, thank y'all. Thank you for what you do. Keep it up, and we're going to send as many folks as we can out there. Really appreciate y'all coming on and spending some time with us.
Absolutely.
We're going to slide out now. We're going to come back. We'll have Kyle Whitmire on with us for a little bit. This is Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a minute. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy to have with us again, first time in a while.
It's been a while.
Skill.com columnist Kyle Whitmire. We've talked to you since you won the Pulitzer, though, right?
I think maybe since the Pulitzer, but not since I changed. I have a new home for the first time since I was 6 months old. I'm not living in the state of Alabama. I am now we're calling it the Washington Watchdog columnist for AL.com. But I am still writing about things back home whenever they pop onto my radar. So,
right. So he lives in D.C. Still registered to vote in both states under an assumed name in the state of Alabama here. But no, all right. So let's get into this let's start with Mr. Wahl because you and I have both written some things about John Wahl. I was a little more focused on the financial aspects of things he and his brother have done in Limestone County and what they've had going on with their consulting company. But you had some stuff, including I guess it was last week now, a story about his license, which was quite a surprise to everybody.
Sure.
That he had a license and where it was, and I guess kind of explain what has happened with Mr. Wahl.
Well, I mean, the hardest thing about telling this story is trying to figure out where to start, because I've been writing about this in fits and spurts over the last 2 years now. But a couple of years ago, I had someone tell me that his name was not, in fact, John Wahl, but was Nehemiah Wahl. And I didn't really know what to do with it because I didn't have, this person didn't want to go on record about it. And I didn't have what we sometimes call, safe paper, a public document, a record of some kind that can prove the fact. That's always where the way I like to do things. And so it just kind of sat in the back of my notebook for a long time. And during that time, just in the course of conversations, I didn't spread it at all. But, I'd ask, have you ever heard him using a different name or something like that? And never really got much back. And then after the Alabama-Georgia game last year, it suddenly exploded and started spreading like wildfire. Like something had happened when he was checking in at that game. People overheard it, people saw it, and suddenly everybody's talking about Nehemiah Wahl all throughout Alabama, gossip circles. Still couldn't do anything with it. I looked in Nexus. I found a Nehemiah Wahl in Tennessee, not far from the place that John Wahl claims is his Alabama address. But, I couldn't prove that Nehemiah Wahl and John Wahl were the same person. So again, goes right back into the back of the notebook. Well, we were working through this Tuberville stuff. I'm looking for different ways to prove one way or the other where Tommy Tuberville lives. Does he live in Florida? Does he live in Auburn? And I reached out to a friend of mine, investigative reporter who lives in Florida. And I asked him, I said, tell me the Florida ways. Cause the Alabama public records are like me swimming in an ocean, but once I get into a different state, it gets a lot more complicated and I'm just not as familiar. And he gave me a few pointers. None of them really worked. And one of those was, look for a traffic ticket, because in a traffic ticket, they frequently will have their driver's license information on there. Well, I looked up Tommy Tuberville, I looked up his wife, I looked up his kids, I looked him up in Alabama, I looked him up in Florida, didn't really find anything that was useful. I filed a column that was, making the argument that it's going to be the Alabama GOP's responsibility to get to the bottom of this, and nobody can take that away from them. I sent that to my editor, and I'm sitting there, waiting for her to start telling me what I wrote that was wrong. And then I just kind of got bored, and I had Alicourt open in front of me, and some little wires in the back of my brain just connected, and I typed in, let's see what happens when you type in Nehemiah Wahl. And lo and behold, there was the golden egg. There was this traffic ticket from 2023. Morgan County state trooper had written him a speeding ticket. That speeding ticket showed that he presented the trooper with a Tennessee driver's license, not an Alabama driver's license. It showed the address as the address I'd found for this Nehemiah Wahl in Nexus, the online database that we sometimes use. But it showed that the car was registered to the Athens, Alabama address that John Wahl uses, right? And the description of this person was, I think, 6'3", blue eyes, all the things that match up. Maybe been 6'4". I mean, he's a tall man. He's a tall dude, yeah. And it was clearly John Wahl, but still, I wanted a little bit of verification. So I sent one of our folks to the parking lot when he went to the last Alabama Library Board meeting and matched up the license plate and the make of the car that he drives with the car that was on that speeding ticket. So at that point, we really had everything that we needed to say, John and Nehemiah Wahl are the same person. It's time to make the phone call. He doesn't want to talk on the phone. He asked me to text him. And I texted him first and I said, hey, did something happen at the Alabama-Georgia game? When did you start using the name John Wahl? Is your real name Nehemiah Ezekiel Wahl? What's going on here? He texts me back and says, your information is wrong. You have, and I'm paraphrasing here, this isn't the exact quote, but you have some bad sources. You have bad information. I said, well, okay. Then I laid down all my cards that I had. I said, well, I've got this, told him, did you get a speeding ticket in 2023, in April 2023? Did you present a Tennessee driver's license when you got that ticket? And at that point, he changed his tune and started being a little bit more forthcoming, but says he has never tried to hide the fact that his name is Nehemiah Wahl, despite that he had just tried to hide the fact that his name was Nehemiah Wahl.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And that no record, and look, I've looked at campaign finance reports. I've looked at, not campaign finance reports, although I have looked there, and there's interesting information there. Statements of economic interest with the Alabama Ethics Commission, the documents that he has to sign in the normal course of business as the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, where he signed his name when he was an elector in the Electoral College. And everywhere you look in Alabama, it's John Wahl, not Nehemiah, not Nehemiah Ezekiel Wahl, not Nehemiah, also known as John Wahl, but just John Wahl. But in Tennessee, it's this completely different name. And not only did he have a driver's license there that was still showed as current in the databases that we looked at, but he was also registered to vote there. Although he never cast a ballot there. So
that I was going to say that there's also this other interesting layer of this thing, because we reported about the voter registration there in Tennessee, and also the voter registration in Alabama, in which he is registered to vote as John Wahl in Alabama, and was registered at least up until yesterday as Nehemiah Ezekiel Wahl in the state of Tennessee. It has been suspiciously removed from that website. Good thing we got that screenshot when we did, But that kind of takes us back to an earlier story you wrote about John Wahl and his use of a phony ID that he created himself, where he purported to be some sort of a staffer at the auditor's office under Ziegler, and he created this whole thing, and it too just said John Wahl. And so we have this whole spectacle now of this man who has created, it seems, an alternate persona in John Wahl. For whatever purpose he's done it. Now, I guess the question becomes, is there some illegality there? Because it certainly seems like there's some illegality there in terms of filing the statements of economic interest, in terms of the voter registration portion of this thing. I don't know.
My reflexive answer to that always is that's not for us to determine. That's up for the authorities to determine, and for ultimately, if it gets that far, a jury to determine. But we also know that both the current Secretary of State and the former Secretary of State referred complaints about this issue to the authorities, to Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall, who was asked by Lanyap this past week what they were going to do about this. And Marshall just kind of played dumb, said he just acted like he didn't know anything about it.
I'm unaware. I was unaware of this.
Yeah, even though that we've reached out to him for comment in the past when those things happened, and there've been banner headlines on our site and on others about it. So yeah, don't joke about it. It's don't play dumb. You're trying something that's not going to work there.
So what I wonder, Kyle, is, did this whole thing happen because of something personal that he doesn't want people to know about, or something political? Because as you've clearly indicated, and by the way, kudos on the great reporting you did, and Josh, kudos on the great reporting you did, it really seems to me that there's got to be either a personal or a political reason, and I wonder which one it is.
I don't think it has to be. Those aren't mutually exclusive things.
Okay.
I mean, I've talked to him about this, and he has shared some of his story on record about this. And I'll just try to give you the thumbnail biographical sketch of John Wahl that I've put together in the course of my reporting. Sometime before John was born, his parents adopted, we'll just say, overlapping political and religious beliefs. And he wants to make it out like he used the term bigotry last week again when he was talking about this on the radio. I don't really care about his family's religious beliefs, but they are very, socially and, secluded. They seem to, have a lot in common with, sovereign citizens. If folks know a lot about them, who are sort of don't really recognize governmental authority that much. And his brother has testified in a deposition for the NAACP in their lawsuit against Alabama's voter ID law, in which he said that they believe that what they call biometric identification, which includes government issued photo ID, is the mark of the beast foretold in Revelation. And they don't want anything to do with that. Now, his brother also was asked in that same deposition, does everybody in your family believe this? And he said, some more than others, it varies. And we'll just call him John Wahl because that seems to be the name he wants to use in Alabama, has never really been clear in the times I've asked him about this of where he stands on that issue. I'm gonna speculate just for a second, okay? I think
you're talking about the theological. Is that when you say this issue, you mean the theological part of it?
Well, I think the theological end of it. Now, here's my speculation. I can look in public databases and see that his parents have Social Security numbers. Neither John nor his siblings seem to have Social Security numbers. I've been told by people who are close to them or have known them for a long time that they may not have things like birth certificates or Social Security numbers. Again, that is not verified, and I want to be very clear about that. I believe his parents made a choice when he and his siblings were born not to enter them into the system then. And that has complicated their entire lives up until this point. And his brother talks a little bit about that in the deposition, about not being able, what it's like to not be able to get a driver's license and, all the things that he has to go through and, and how hard it is when government expects you to show an ID when you vote. Now, up until this point, none of this is John Wahl's fault. Like, he is not to blame for any of this. And I don't even really question his parents. Look, parents make decisions about how they raise their children with good intentions all the time that maybe complicate their lives further down the road. And I'm not going to judge too far, and I don't have judgment about anyone's religious beliefs, but how you treat others and how you act toward others does matter. And what happens in 2022 and on occasions before that is that John and his family would go to a polling place and they would refuse to show a driver's license or some sort of a photo ID when they voted. And they would pressure poll workers to fill out affidavits swearing, because there is a tiny, tiny exception in the law, a little keyhole of that you can crawl through here. It says if two election workers sign affidavits saying that you are who you say you are, then you may then vote. There were poll workers who just they didn't know all the whole family, or they didn't know what one person was or who another person was. And now it seems that they didn't know what John Wahl's real legal name was. And they got fed up with it. And one in particular, a man named Clyde Martin. And for me, this is really where my interest in this story began. He refuses to go along with this any further. And John Wahl put pressure on the Secretary of State's office and on the probate court there in Limestone County to have this poll worker removed. And the guy lost his job. I mean, it's a volunteer position, but he still got fired. And for doing what? It would now appear that he tried to uphold the law and was absolutely right about everything. Another poll worker, her name is Sarah Chadwell, told me about this ID that John had shown her that appeared to be some sort of state employee ID, media credential. She was a little hazy on it. And I talked with John Wahl about what she had told me, and he plays for me a recording that he had made in his own polling place, because that's a totally normal thing to do, to go in a polling place with some sort of voice recorder on.
I do that every time I go. You got to record it.
And I hear him in this recording calling the probate judge and telling the probate judge that he's going to text him a picture of this ID. Well, it's funny because I'd asked the probate judge for all the correspondence all the text messages, every form, emails, everything that they had with John Wahl, and they hadn't shared me this text message. So I called the probate judge and say, "Hey guys, what gives? You told me that you'd shared everything with me. You charged me hundreds of dollars for all the documents that I'd asked for." Oh, well, I talked with the county attorney about it, and we concluded that because it was a picture, it was not actually a text. Well, I consider it a text, send it over. And that's how we got that picture of the ID. But look, this is something that keeps going on. And now we know that when John Wahl is having this friction, these interactions with these poll workers, he's got a driver's license in his pocket. It's just from Tennessee. And it has a different name on it that doesn't match the name that he's registered to vote under in the state of Alabama.
How did he get a Tennessee driver's license without a social security number?
Don't know. And again, let me be clear. I cannot find evidence that he has a social security number. That does not mean that he doesn't have one.
There was not a social security number on the ticket, which typically means there was not one on the driver's license.
Right. There's not one there. And again, public databases that I can go into and see, it won't show me the whole number. It'll anonymize it. It'll like X out the last 4 digits or the first 5, but those don't show any sort of number.
Don't you think you would have come across one by now with all the digging you've done?
Well, I mean, he has in recent weeks held up what he says is an Alabama driver's license. He told us that he has an Alabama driver's license with his photo on it, because at one point I did ask him, because in Tennessee, they do have, they are a bit more flexible there, or at least they were several years ago, about allowing people with religious objections to have driver's license without photo ID on it. And I asked him, is that what this is about? And his response was, I have an Alabama driver's license with my photo on it. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no, but that was his answer to me.
It'll make your head hurt. And that, well, because I want to, before we can get out of here, I want to add 2 more questions. And the first one, following along with this right here, is you and I have spoken, but even more so, I've talked to a countless number of people. I can't figure out what's going on here. I can't for the life of me. I do think that what you said about his parents and things, and I'll be clear, I've said it in a column, I hold the same thing. I don't care about his religion. Practice it, whatever makes you happy, man. As long as you're not hurting other people, go live your life. I don't care about that at all. Okay, I don't. And if you don't want to, I support you 100% on the exceptions to the photo ID stuff and voting and everything else. I've said it a bunch of times. All right, I think there are many people like you out there that do that, and I think that you have every right to do it that way. I've shouted down a lot of people who talked about, it's just a weirdo or what. I was like, no, man, the man's not hurting anybody. Stop calling people names for doing things that they like. Just because he's a butterfly farmer, is it an unusual profession? Yes, it is. But I mean, so the hell what?
I'll tell you something real quick. He had a great business doing that. And there's actually a YouTube channel that you can go to. I think it's called The Butterfly Farmer or Mr. Butterfly Farmer. And he has sort of this, the crocodile hunter get up, and he, goes out and does little nature videos. And when someone sent this to me, I'm like, oh my God, what am I about to watch? But no, it's really good. Like I watch these things. I'm like, man, why didn't you just do this for a living? You're good at this. Like you could
He's
have.
a very personable fella. I
Yeah,
mean, he is. He's
very charismatic.
personable. Yes.
And
Yeah.
And David, back to your question, is this political or is this personal? I think it's both at the same time, because what has happened is, he grew up in this environment that's made it very complicated for him to, step out into the world and have a political career. And I think he got into, it wasn't just him. He had other family members, and Josh, you've written about this extensively, who have gotten involved in Limestone County politics, and he sort of works his way up very quickly. I think he registered to vote in 2012. Like that, he goes from registering to vote to being the chairman of the party in less than 10 years. And so he has an exceptional political aptitude here, but he's sort of torn between these two worlds. And rather than just kind of being open and explaining everything, he's chosen to, hold as much back as long as he can, because yes, I do think it complicates things. I mean, if he is the poster child, or his family's a poster child, for why we shouldn't have photo voter ID the way that we have it now. Because yes, we probably should in Alabama have a religious exemption to this rule, so that people like the Walls and the Walls can go vote, because that's their right as American citizens. But right now, one more thing, you have the SAVE Act that is being considered in Congress that would require every American who wants to vote to have to show things like a birth certificate, a social security card, a passport to prove your citizenship before you get to vote. And, look, I don't necessarily like this law, but it is the law.
Yeah. Just real quickly, it sounds as though to me, with everything you and Josh have reported on and said, that my suspicion that maybe there was something nefarious going on is really wrong. It's not nefarious.
Let me
I say
push back. Real quick.
Let me just.
Okay, I'll let Josh handle that.
I'm saying, when I say nefarious, I mean I don't think that. And if you're about to correct me, that's cool. But based on what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like there's some, deep, dark political secret or even personal secret that he's really trying to hide. It's a complicated family history here. But you're going to correct me on that? Do you think I'm wrong on that?
I'm not necessarily going to correct you. I'm going to say I would withhold a little bit of judgment on that, because the one thing that I can't figure, and like I said, I'm with Kyle on the early part of his life, and this conflict that he's having with the personal and the political and things up to a point. But I'm going to need a better explanation for what's happened in 2020-ish that led him to go and apparently chunk at least some of these beliefs that he's leaned on, to say that he's not going to get an Alabama ID and to do these certain things to get around this Alabama ID and to fight these fights that he's had, and get a license in Tennessee with his real name on it, with his photo on it, apparently. And at the same time, he's in Alabama doing what he's doing here. There's something there, and I don't know what it is. And I'm not saying it's something illegal or nefarious, but if I had to guess, these are sort of actions that often are involved in something nefarious.
Look, and I won't call it nefarious yet, but I mentioned at the top, I just moved to Virginia. Funny thing, last week I went and got my Virginia driver's license. So that's writing about all this, because I have been procrastinating this entire time. I also registered to vote here, and I had to go through the process of moving my ID up here, and I went back and looked in Alabama, and I looked in Tennessee, and it's very almost identical process. You have to bring proof of your residency. You can't just say, I'm intending to move to Virginia or Tennessee or Alabama.
Yeah.
You have to bring a power bill. You have to bring leaks.
His story.
You have to bring something that shows that you live where you live.
Yeah.
Right. And then just never really did it full time. But And it says, is this your primary residence? You have to sign a piece of paper under, penalty of perjury saying you live here. And if he did that and he intends to run for lieutenant governor, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because the lieutenant governor race or the position has the same requirement as the race for governor, the office of governor, and that you have to have lived in Alabama for 7 consecutive years up until election day. And that puts him out of that window.
Yeah. Real quick, we'll get you out of here on this here. Are you, you mentioned Tommy Tuberville earlier and how this all kind of got started. Mm-hmm. Are you as comfortable as I am now in just simply flatly saying that Tommy Tuberville has not lived here for 7 years? Because I'm fairly comfortable in saying that.
I will, I want to give him the opportunity to prove us wrong and tell us to shut up. And I've asked him if he is
I think he'll do the latter. He'll definitely do the latter.
If he is a resident of the state of Alabama, he should be able to show his state income taxes for the last 7 years. You don't have to tell me how much you paid. You just scratch that part out. Take a Sharpie, cover it up. I don't care. But show us that you have paid your income taxes for each of the last 7 years, and on a piece of paper that shows when you paid them. Don't go pay them now and then say, oh yeah, here you go. That should do it. Because look, the homestead exemption in Auburn already showed, he voted in Florida after his wife started claiming that homestead exemption. That doesn't really do it. We see all these flights that he's paying for, some of which with taxpayer dollars, going to Florida. His lifestyle is very much a beachgoer. And look, I got married about a half a mile from his house down there. So I get it. It's a beautiful place. And if I could afford to live there, I probably would too. But
you could not bomb me out of that beach house. Okay. There is no chance I would even consider being the governor of this state if I was living in that beach house. You couldn't get me out of there. I would stay in the Senate or whatever I was doing and keep going back and forth to that beach house. And you would never entertain it. I would stay as quiet as I could and just live right there all the time. But hey, man,
well, look, this is
go ahead.
Oh yeah, sure. I was just going to say the recurring theme here is, are we going to have laws anymore? Because are we going to have laws anymore? Because, there's this issue of, there's in-groups who are protected by the law, but not bound by it. And then there are out-groups who are bound by the law and not protected by it. And that seems to be the theme beginning of January of this year for certain. And I believe that self-correcting systems eventually self-destruct. Alabama needs to re-embrace being a self-correcting system. I'll leave it at that.
I don't know that it could be said any better than that. And you're 100% right. All right, Kyle, thank you, man, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And
Appreciate you.
It's been great work. It really has been great work.
Yeah,
I look forward to more of it. And I'm sure we'll talk in the very near fuar at some point.
The story never ends.
Yeah, man. Keep it up, Kyle. We appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Dave.
Doing a good job of the state.
Yeah. As AL.com's Kyle Whitmire, we're going to slide out to Alabama politics this week. We'll be back in a minute. All righty, welcome back. Alabama politics this week. Josh Moon, David Person. Thanks to Kyle Whitmire. Thanks to let me run down the list of Lauren, Dasan, and Kalonji for coming on and spending some time with us from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Thanks to the Southern Poverty Law Center for sponsoring this fine program and what they do. Thanks especially to the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment and their sponsorship and what they do, and all the other people who support and us and watch and download and leave the very fine reviews. If you'd like to do that, go to Apple, leave us a review. I think you can do the same thing at Spotify now on that. I think you can. Maybe I looked at that wrong and I've got the wrong platform on there. But we're on all the platforms, so you can get us anywhere. And we would encourage you to do so. Subscribe to the podcast, because honestly, what does it hurt you? You know, you subscribe and it's just there. It pops in. You either listen to it or you don't. All right. It's like these people who are all the time complaining about when we would go too long. Oh, it's too long. It's too long. So, quit listening. Turn it off. Hit the skip button. I don't care. You know, come on, man. Also, I've been very self-conscious about this today because somebody in the comments on one of the videos said that the lamp behind my head made me look like Trey Gowdy. The lamp behind my head, you see this? Made me look like Trey Gowdy.
Yeah, I'm looking. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
Trey Gowdy's little pointy head that he had.
uh,
Also, someone also on one of the comments said that they had no idea that Vin Diesel had an Alabama politics podcast. And
that's actually funny.
yeah, I get that quite a bit, man. The Vin
Do
Diesel
you?
thing.
The Vin Diesel thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, you know, Vin Diesel is sort of racially ambiguous. Does that
Yeah.
mean you're racially ambiguous?
I guess so, especially in the summertime when I get a tan. I
Okay.
get a lot. We have a little place on the lake up in Rogersville, and I go grocery store up there, and man, I had a kid convinced I was Vin Diesel, and I was using like an assumed name up there, and he was convinced. Like every time I
That's
through
hilarious.
his line at the grocery store, he would just go,
Uh, yeah, Josh
Yeah.
Moon. Okay.
right, yeah. But no, it's
That's funny. I love it.
yeah, y'all keep listening. We really do appreciate it. All right. We're gonna right wing nut it and get out of here. So our right wing nut is the Trump administration and what they have done through Doge to wreck the National Weather Service and the alert systems and the meteorology tools, the meteorological tools, I guess.
Meteorological. Well, now I messed it up.
That's all right.
All right, we'll leave that word alone. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The weather stuff.
Yeah.
The weather stuff. Y'all, the weather stuff is messed up because of what they've done. And, you know, take it from somebody who had a tornado go over their house yesterday. You know, there was a portion of time yesterday that the folks in Huntsville were forced to use the Birmingham radars. And I, you know, there've been some stories back and forth about who's responsible and who's not responsible. But I know that there have been a number of folks in the weather world who have talked about the blow this has taken on this and the accuracy of forecast and the things that we're going to be missing from alert systems and whatnot. And I look, man, you can't. This is what drives me insane. There are functions of government. Okay, there are functions of government that we have relied on, and to lump it all together and pretend as though that you're doing something when you screw up these functions of government or just make them go away or arbitrarily go through there and just fire people or whatever, and to have idiots cheer that because they don't understand what's going on. I mean, listen, is there government waste? Of course there's government waste.
Yeah.
Should we try to root it out? Of course we should try to root it out, but we should do it smartly, not with some crazy person with a chainsaw who doesn't understand what they're doing and do this, because if you don't do it smartly, you get tornadoes that land in your backyard and you don't know they're coming.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, they also, not only has this had an impact on the technology, access to certain types of technology that's used for weather forecasting and weather tracking, it's also had an impact on staffing. So, you know, and, you know, there was a story I read about there being some concerns about people being able to be in place overnight.
Yes.
You know, it's not like tornadoes and hurricanes and whatever else. You know, they don't keep bankers hours. I mean, you know, it's a 24/7. Right. You know, So, I mean, it's really concerning, man. And it's just it's flabbergasting to me that this administration has not figured out, you know, some fundamental common sense kinds of things that they should be concerned about, you know, that benefit everybody, not just people in blue states, not just Democrats, but everybody.
Yeah. It's really infuriating, and common sense is completely lost on this bunch of people. And that, cause it's just, you know, what bugs me even more than them doing it, because listen, I understand what they're doing. They're doing it for strictly PR, and they don't give a shit what happens to people for the most part. But what infuriates me more than anything are the people at the ground level. And we talked about this sort of asshole era that we've entered into now at this point, where, and it started, my first real, inclination of how widespread it was among the masses was when Trump was signing the executive order shortly after being sworn in, and he signed the executive order forcing people to go back to work at the office. Why that was a concern of everybody's, I don't know. But the crowd went wild at this little public ceremony that he was having. They were cheering, "Oh, I'm sending them back to the office." And they were cheering. And I was like, why? What do you're just being an ass to people. I mean, you've disrupted their lives over these things. And we've had people who've done this, that built their lives around this job being a remote position because they could do the work remotely and they could do it effectively, and oftentimes could do it much more cost effectively and much more efficiently than they could have going into an office. I mean, I know dozens of people at this point who have been forced back to the office who are far less productive at their job that we're paying for than they were when they were working remotely, even though they were available to go pick their kids up from school or take them to their after school activities or do whatever. Even with those little
caregivers.
Yeah, they were so much more efficient at their job because of the hours they were working and not having to travel back and forth to an office, that it's so counterproductive and nonsensical that it makes no sense. And this is the same way with this stuff right here with the National Weather Service shit. You've cheered these cuts and you've cheered, oh, they're saving money. Well, first of all, they're not saving money. It's going to end up costing us hundreds of billions of dollars what they've done. And secondly, it's made us less safe because you've removed a vital function of our government that was put in place to make us more safe and to keep us safe, and that we all rely on. That you don't even think about. You don't even think about the people that work and do these things all day. You have no idea what they do. You have no concept of it, but you've cheered it. You've cheered it because they got cut. And it's so stupid. And you know what? Here's the other thing. You're not getting any of that money. You're not getting it. You're not going to get a tax break. You're not going to get a dime back. You're not going to get a single solitary damn dime of this money back. Not a dime of it's coming your way. Now, we may be able to give some tax breaks to some rich people, but you're not going to see shit. Nothing.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Safe and more inconvenienced, and you're never going to see a dime.
I believe you're absolutely right on that.
All right.
Absolutely right.
Well, listen, I can't get a response better than that. So let's get on out of here. Until next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.